Welcome back to the series, Critical Thinking, the Gateway to the Modern World. Throughout this series, we've journeyed from the classroom to the professional world to personal life. At each stage, critical thinking emerges as a capacity that helps people understand better and act more effectively. But there's a point where critical thinking is no longer just a skill, nor merely a personal strength. It's when it touches upon collective beliefs, social order, and the power structures shaping our lives. Imagine living in a society where a certain belief has been repeated long enough to become commonplace. No one forces you to believe it, but everything around you makes you think there's no need to question it anymore. And at that moment, critical thinking ceases to be about finding flaws in arguments and becomes a moral choice. Do you dare to look deeper than what is considered normal? That is why, in this final section, we will discuss the connection between critical thinking and social responsibility, where critical thinking is synonymous with speaking the truth to power. Part 1. Is thinking truly independent of society? Before we begin, I have a question.
If our thinking is formed within a specific society, can completely objective critical thinking exist?
We're often taught that critical thinking is independent thinking. But social science and philosophy point out something not easily accepted. Our thinking is always embedded in society. The way we understand right and wrong, normal and abnormal, rational and irrational, doesn't arise spontaneously. It's formed within specific economic, political, cultural, and power structures. We don't just think with individual reason, but with patterns that have been socialized since very early times. This doesn't mean all thoughts are flawed, but it does mean that no thought is completely neutral.
So you have the answer to the question. If our thinking is formed within a specific society, can completely objective critical thinking exist?
The answer is, critical thinking isn't about detachment from society, but rather the ability to recognize the social influences shaping our own thinking, thereby reclaiming intellectual autonomy. However, if thinking is always shaped, the next question is, who is shaping it most powerfully? Part 2. When common sense becomes ideology. I have a question for everyone.
How can we distinguish between sound common sense and an ideology that is manipulating perception?
In social life, the most dangerous beliefs aren't shocking, but rather familiar ones. Statements like, everyone is poor because they're lazy, or free competition is always fair, are often not considered opinions, but self-evident truths. Critical theorists call this the dominant ideology, a collection of beliefs that makes an unjust order seem natural, rational, and unquestionable. The problem with ideology isn't that it's entirely wrong, but that it reflects the interests of certain groups, yet is accepted as universal truth.
So you have the answer to the question. How can we distinguish between sound common sense and an ideology that is manipulating perception?
The answer is, a core principle of social critical thinking is always to ask who this belief serves and who pays the price for it. When common sense consistently strengthens the power of the dominant group and silences the weaker group, it is no longer harmless common sense.
Và nếu hệ tư tưởng được duy trì qua niềm tin, thì giáo dục chính là nơi nó được tái sản xuất mạnh mẽ nhất.
Part 3. Domestication or liberation education. Before we get to this part, I have a question.
Can education truly be neutral, or does it always take a side in society?
In many traditional models, education is seen as the process of transmitting knowledge. Yes, from the knowledgeable to the unknowledgeable, learners are encouraged to absorb, memorize, and reproduce. But this model inadvertently creates intellectually obedient individuals, people who know a great deal but rarely question the existing order. Conversely, social critical thinking demands a dialogical education, where learners have the right to question, the right to be skeptical, and the right to connect knowledge with their own real lives.
So you have the answer to the question. Can education truly be neutral, or does it always take a side in society?
The answer is that education is never neutral. It helps people better adapt to the current order. Or it empowers them to see and challenge the injustices within that order. But social critique cannot rely solely on. Part 4. What happens when criticism lacks compassion? Before we begin, I have a question.
Why does social critical thinking need to be linked to empathy rather than relying solely on logic?
History shows that people can use very rigorous arguments to justify inhumane acts. Purely detached reasoning, if separated from feelings for other people, can become a tool of insensitivity. Democratic educators emphasize that social critical thinking requires the ability to put oneself in another's shoes, not to abandon reason, but to ensure that reason does not turn its back on humanity. So
you have the answer to the question.
Why does social critical thinking need to be linked to empathy rather than relying solely on logic?
the answer is that mature social critical thinking connects rational analysis with moral responsibility, enabling people not only to understand correctly, but also to care correctly. However, in today's media age, there's a front where critical thinking is more urgent than ever. Part 5. Language, communication, and manipulation. Before we begin, I have a question.
Why is language the most powerful tool in shaping social thought?
Modern power is not only exercised through laws or violence, but also through language, emotional stories, moral symbols, and labels of good and bad that can lead people to believe things that go against their own interests. In the age of social media, these tactics are exploited at an unprecedented speed. Emotions spread faster than facts, and outrage is often rewarded more than slow, deliberate thought.
So you have the answer to the question. Why is language the most powerful tool in shaping social thought?
The answer is that critical thinking acts as a moral and cognitive filter, helping people to pause, verify, and avoid becoming tools for manipulation.
Now let's review the reinforcement questions. If our thinking is formed within a specific society, can completely objective critical thinking exist?
The answer is, critical thinking isn't about detachment from society, but rather the ability to recognize the social influences shaping our own thinking, thereby reclaiming intellectual autonomy.
How can we distinguish between sound common sense and an ideology that is manipulating perception?
The answer is, a core principle of social critical thinking is always to ask who this belief serves and who pays the price for it.
Can education truly be neutral, or does it always take a side in society?
The answer is that education is never neutral. It helps people better adapt to the current order.
Why does social critical thinking need to be linked to empathy rather than relying solely on logic?
The answer is that mature social critical thinking connects rational analysis with moral responsibility, enabling people not only to understand correctly, but also to care correctly.
Why is language the most powerful tool in shaping social thought?
The answer is that critical thinking acts as a moral and cognitive filter, helping people to pause, verify, and avoid becoming tools for manipulation.
In summary, in short, critical thinking is never completely neutral, as it is always shaped by society and power. True critical thinking involves identifying these influences to reclaim intellectual autonomy. Many common, familiar customs are essentially ideologies serving the interests of certain groups. Therefore, social criticism requires constantly asking, who does this belief serve and who pays the price for it? Education is never neutral. It either domesticates people to conform to the current order or empowers them to challenge injustice. Critical thinking cannot rely solely on logic. It must be linked to a sense of responsibility so that reason does not turn against people. In the age of media, critical thinking acts as a filter, helping to stop, verify, and prevent it from becoming a tool of manipulation. Therefore, critical thinking is not just an academic skill, but a life choice and civic responsibility, daring to speak the truth to those in power and acting for a more just society. From this, we can see that social critical thinking is not about becoming skeptical of everything, nor is it about opposition for the sake of opposition. It is the ability to see beyond the familiar, to dare to question those in power, and to have the courage to act for a more just society. That is also why critical thinking cannot be seen merely as an academic skill. It is a life choice, a civic responsibility. And to conclude this entire series, let's take with us a question not meant for quick answers, but to live with. In the unjust situations you witness daily, will you use your critical thinking to adapt safely or to bravely speak the truth, even if it's not easy? The final answer will lie not in words, but in each person's actions.